Today's video, where we are taking a look at Dawesome's rather fine looking synth, Zyklop. And the question here is, how is this software free? I mean, seriously, just take a look at it. And the deeper you go, the more you can't believe that something like this exists with absolutely no strings attached. It's crazy where we're at with VSTs nowadays. So I've put the link in the description for you to grab Zyklop for yourself. While you're there, take a look at Dawesome's other synths. They are incredible. I own Novum. That is a granular synth on totally another level. These guys are really pushing boundaries, and it's for the better. So let's get into it. We're going to listen to some of the 125 presets, we're going to dig a little deeper, and we're going to do some sound design. So let's go. So when you first open Zyklop, you can't help but be attracted to the iris in the middle. The iris here is actually a visual representation of the waveform, and the function of the iris is for you to drop audio files into it. The synth will then crunch some numbers, use some very clever maths, and it uses resynthesis as the means of creating an oscillator. Worth noting at this stage, before we go any deeper, that Zyklop has a tooltip function. This is really helpful. You switch it on and off by clicking the question mark, and these things are not immediately evident what's doing what here, so you can highlight the tooltip for each and every item, and it tells you exactly what's going on. So when you're learning the ropes, when you're getting to grips with this synth, very handy to have the tooltip section switched on. Once you've managed to take your gaze away from the iris, what you'll notice is that there is 7 images here, pictograms you might call them, and 7 different colors. And these are actually referred to as transformers because they transform the sound. I would suggest taking a look at the manual that comes with Zyklop when you download it. It gives you a great description of what's going on here, because what does that mean? It's not very clear. Looks fantastic, but yeah, take a look at the manual. There's a page specific to the transformers telling you exactly what does what and why it's worth using. So yeah, when you're just getting to grips with Zyklop, take a look at the manual, use the tooltips, and before you know it, things flow. So this is what the sound Lorelei sounds like out of the box. Kind of a dark, gritty drone. Let's change some of the parameters. So this is the frequency modulation, and this adds some dirt, so let's do that. And this smooths the temporal layers of the iris, so let's see what that looks like. As you can see there, as you make the changes to the transformers, the iris changes accordingly. Now what you might notice is when you click on one of these functions, it becomes surrounded by a box, and what that is telling you is that that function is modulatable, and that is the same for everything throughout the synth, as you'll see a bit later as we go through the different sections. So let's take a look here. This is let's click on the frequency modulation function, and you can see here that you can modulate it. It's already being modulated by expression 3, which is slide. I want to add some modulation from LFO1 and ADSR envelope 1 as well. And let's say I want to modulate the dirt with LFO3. There we go, we've done that. And you can see as the LFO oscillates, the iris changes. Let's listen to what these changes have done to this preset. Okay, so questionable as to whether that's usable or not, but it's definitely made some changes there. Moving on, we can see at the top here that you have two options. One is for selecting a random preset, so let's do that. Let's see what it sounds like. Quite a sci-fi sound there. And what you can also do is click on the double dice, and that will randomize parameters. So let's click that a couple of times just to see where we're at and see what effect that's had. So just a couple of clicks and you're already into totally different sonic territory. So this, as you can see already, this is a great synth for making new sounds from a sound source, and you'll often end up somewhere totally different to where you started off. Let's take a look at the multiple modulation sources. They're all listed down the left here. If you hover over, you can see the tooltip down below, which tells you exactly what it is. So this is a bit of expression modulation. Click on each one. These three are pretty much the same, but you just left click on the hamburger and you can pick exactly what it is. So let's go for slide, and then you can alter the curve here just like that. Double click to add another point. ADSR is a bit slightly different, as you might imagine. It's an ADSR envelope, so you've got attack, decay, sustain, release, and it's worth noting that if you want to, click on it and it shows you that you can modulate it, which is, yeah, if you really want to modulate the attack, you can do that. Two more ADSRs below that you can assign to different parameters to modulate them. And then we've got three LFOs, similar to the above options where you just alter the curve, double click to add a new point. Actually, it's just a single click, so yeah, single click and alter. And if you right click and drag up and down, you can make it more of a step mode. So I'm right clicking here, and that's going to have a different effect on the LFO. And down here you get into the trenches with all of the different parameters that you can have on an LFO. And then you've got the key tracking here, and you can alter the curve. So that's how you access and edit the modulation sources. Let's take a look at the tabs next to the list of presets here. And the Browse tab gives you the opportunity or the functionality of just picking sounds by different criteria. So this is the sound designer. I'm going to go for Spectralisc, and I want a nice key sound, and it should be light. So that gives you these options here. Let's go for hydrophonic C string just to see what that sounds like. Quite a nice plucky sound there. Let's stick with that for the time being. So yeah, you can quickly and easily select what kind of sounds you want using this filter function here. Above that you've got the modulation matrix, and for this sound there's quite a lot of modulation going on. So for example, you've got the main ADSR is modulating the cutoff for the low pass filter, or the first low pass filter. If you don't want that to happen, you can just click here and it will remove it. And if you want to alter the depth of the modulation, you can do it here by clicking and moving the mouse up and down, but let's leave that pretty much as it was. As you would expect from a synth of this quality and depth, you have a pretty good suite of effects that you can chain together. This sound has only got the delay here, but if you want to add more, click on the plus and you get a nice selection of different sounds. I'm going to put a delay here, and let's see what that's done. And what you can also do is click on the parameter, and as you can see here, the square box around the parameter means that you can actually modify that. So, and clicking here, you can pick your BPM if you wanted, but let's put this on sync, and I want to modulate the feedback by LFO1, so let's do that. There we go, and that should now appear on the mod matrix. Yeah, there you go. Feedback, delay 2, LFO1. And if you don't want a sound effect, you can switch it on and off by clicking on the circle. And if you right click on the hamburger, you can exchange it for something else. Let's have a shimmer, reverb. Nice tail on that. Yeah, that's had a lovely effect on there. So yes, as you would expect, like I say, nice suite of effects there to mold your sound a bit further. There's also a filter section. Click on here. There's a bunch of presets you can already you can avail yourself of, and you can modulate the cutoff or the resonance or anything that you like. So I'm going to modulate the cutoff by LFO2. Go back there. There we go. So we've now added that modulation option. And now we go to the tab above where you can actually change the settings for the oscillator itself, the sound source that you load into the iris. So this has got an OTT on there. Let's see what we can add. I want a bit of saturation, so we'll add that. Turn that drive up. See how that sounds. So the world really is your oyster here, with all of these different options that you have to play with the presets that come with it, or to create your own by simply dropping an audio file into here, which we'll be doing shortly. The final option on these tabs is an arpeggiator. Let's see what that sounds like now I've switched it on. And if you right click, you can access some different presets. Let's go for melody 1, see what that sounds like. Nice. So you've got an ARP, you've got filters, you've got effects, and you've got a modulation matrix. Like I said earlier, it does go deep, and it's incredible that it's free. So let's take a look at some of the sounds. And that's 125. So what I don't want to do is go through all of them, because that would take forever. Let's just have a listen to a couple of these that I've favorited. So you've got the first one, the Zyklop. This Ogre one is a bit more of a deep bass sound. nice and growly bass there, potentially for something like dubstep or drum and bass. Let's affect or make some changes here just randomly, see what that's done to that sound. Oh. Made it sound worse. Okay, well, you can't win them all. Let's try another one. FM keys. As you might imagine. Reminiscent of a Yamaha FM synth, space synth. How do we pronounce this one? Calyptikleos? Sounds very Greek. Lovely dark drone there. So you can see it's very versatile. There's lots of different sounds that we've already gone through. Thick bass, plinky leads, dark drones. And that sounds quite analog. Oh, that's another growl bass. So it really does do quite a lot. And again, the fact that it's free is just ridiculous. Let's try this one. Okay, that's got a nice arp on it. Let's see if we can change that slightly. Let's go to Melody 2, see how that sounds. That's lovely. Let's try one more. Let's go for Wardrobe Rhythm. So that's very percussive. So you can see there, the value is really incredible. Goes very deep, all kinds of modulation options, fantastic GUI, and you've got 125 different sounds there to play with. It's quite evident that, you know, it's a very versatile synth. In the next part, what I want to do is dig deeper and just create a couple of sounds from scratch and see how we go there. Let's get into that now. Now that we've got a very basic understanding of what Zyklop can do, let's have a bit of fun, do a bit of sound design and see what we can make from scratch. So here I'm in the initial patch. This is what it sounds like. Very basic because it's the initial patch. And I thought I'd have a bit of a challenge really and feed it with something that, well, have a listen. That's it, short, sharp and deep. That's what we're going to add into the iris. So let me just drag that and drop that in there now. And I'm going to pick resynthesize V2. And this is all on the fly. We're just going to see what we can do with a very basic sound. And this is where we're at now. So the analysis has been done. This is what the iris looks like. Right, so let's get into it. First thing I want to do is slow down the speed at which the head goes, the playhead goes through the iris. So let's have a look at what LFO1 is doing. Yeah, that's too fast. So I'm going to slow that down to, let's go to half a bar. Okay. Already sounding a bit better. I think it's a bit quiet, so let's give it a bit of welly here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so let's see what we can do with these transformers. How about the red circle? Okay. So I'm going to add a bit of LFO to this. Let's go with LFO2. I want to change the shape of that so it's more of a ramp. Bring this down. I think it sounds better without that dirt. I think this ramp needs to be a bit quicker. How about some effects? I want to add just a touch of reverb onto this. Just the basic reverb, see how that sounds. So that's already sounding a bit nicer. So let's add a bit of OTT on this as well to give it a bit of crunch. That sounds good. Let's add something in terms of filtering. I think we should try, let's go for a comb filter. Okay. Sounds good. What else can we add there? Bit of saturation. That's quite a nasty deep bass we got going on now. I still think that's playing too quick. The playhead is moving too quick, so let's slow things down a bit more. And let's see what we can add here to the oscillator. Resonator, see what that sounds like. Ooh. Okay. That's a really nasty, and when I say nasty I mean nice, resonant twang to that now, so let's turn that down a bit so it's not so pronounced. Oh yeah. Yeah, I like that nice metallic ring to it. So that's quite crazy if you think about it. We've gone from the very basic sound that we had originally. So let's bring that back in again for reference. This is what the original sounded like. And this is where we're at now, after just a bit of tweaking. So that's totally transformed that into something that I like, because I've got kind of a twisted taste in what sounds good, but this for me is certainly usable. So mission achieved, I think. We started off with that very basic woof sound, and we've ended up here with nice raspy metallic sound. I'm going to come back later, tweak that a bit more, but for now I think that's enough for this sound. Let's move on to the next one and create something slightly different to this. So for the next part, let's take things in a different direction. This is the new sample.
From the galaxy of pleasure.
You heard that right.
From the galaxy of pleasure.
So let's see what we can make out of this ridiculous sample. Drop it into the iris. Let's go with V2. And here's the pretty pattern that Zyklop has given us for this sample.
From the galaxy of pleasure.
Okay. I think that's playing too quickly, so let's check the LFO. Modulate that a little. Let's go with something slower. Let's go with 1 bar.
From the galaxy of pleasure.
Okay. And let's rid ourselves of that voice as quickly as we can. Let's add an effects here. Let's go with shimmer.
From the galaxy of pleasure.
Okay. Let's reduce that a bit. Don't want too much of a tail on there.
From the galaxy.
All right.
From the galaxy.
Let's see what we can add in terms of a filter. Let's see if we can make that sound any sweeter.
From the galaxy. From the galaxy. From the galaxy.
Okay. Subtle effect there. Let's see if we can add something that's a little less subtle to really make a different kind of sound with that. So let's mess with the oscillator a bit. Let's try orbit. Okay, that sounds like it's being played through a really old pair of speakers or a gramophone. Alright, let's try this. So these gradual changes here, definitely taking it in a different direction. Let's see if we can make it sound a bit purer. Okay, that is now totally removed any trace of the voice, and we have something totally different. I'm going to add some gain here to make it a bit louder. So in just a couple of minutes, we've essentially gone from this,
From the galaxy of pleasure.
which I think is a fantastic sample, to this. And we haven't even looked at the modulation options or any of the other transformers here, so that really gives you a very clear demonstration of how you can change any sample into something totally different. It may not be the best example, but I just wanted to take it in a really different direction, just to show that even with something as crazy as that, you can end up with something that you could potentially put into a track. So there you go. I think the fact that this synth is free is just ridiculous. There's so much depth here, there's so many options. I mean, I've barely touched on, all of the sub options within the different filters and the oscillator modulations and options here. There's so much more you can get from this synth. Link is in the description. Go download it with no strings. It's entirely free, and it'll take you to the galaxy of pleasure. So if you liked the video, or you got any comments, please stick them in the comments below, and feel free to drop a like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening, and thanks for watching.